We are just living in some very strange times in the tech world because we have a very vocal, a very loud portion of the tech community that is adamantly against anything that says AI. Any feature that has AI of any kind being used, they just don't want it, and they're going to let you know about it when you're watching a phone being unveiled. And Google's like, our phone can zoom in and past 30x. It's going to use AI to enhance that zoom. They are like, I don't want that. Get it off my phone. I'm not going to buy this phone. And if all you do is listen to the vocal people, the loudest portion of the tech community, you would assume that if a company makes a phone that is like completely revolving around AI features, that phone is going to fail. And yet, time and time again, we see that just not being the case. When a phone comes along that is centered around AI, but the AI is done well, the features are baked in a way that makes sense to people, it's interesting to people, and it's going to be useful to people, not that vocal minority, but to everyone else, those phones seem to do pretty well. And today we have even more evidence to that effect. Coming from a report on Counterpoint Research, Google Pixel sales are surging. So, in the first half of 2025, the premium smartphone market in the United States, that is phones $600 and higher, have grown by 8%, or they did grow by 8%, reaching a new all-time high. A record-breaking first half is what Counterpoint Research is calling this. And of course, Apple and Samsung are still very much at the top of that list. But look here on this graphic, look at what Google just did. They are this little tiny green sliver, and they went from that to that. And you may look at that, you might think, well, they're still a pretty tiny green sliver, and that's absolutely true. Google, with their Pixel phones, are not in range of overtaking Samsung or Apple or, good lord, Huawei or even Xiaomi. But what they just did year over year is grow by 105%. That is dramatic growth. You're starting from a smaller volume, yes, but you're growing rapidly. And you guys might remember that the Pixel 8 grew their market share fairly dramatically as well, again, from small, meager beginnings, but the growth was fast, and it seems to be maybe accelerating with the Pixel 9. And of course, as we know, the Pixel 9 was, criticized by some people, I think probably me included, for being so similar to the Pixel 8. They changed the look of the camera bar visor thing a little bit. It's not really a visor anymore. It's kind of like a little island. And that was really about it. It's a new version of the Tensor. I think that the screen's got a bit brighter, but that was really all that they did. The focus was on a ton of AI features, right? So they added into the Magic Editor a thing called Reimagine, where you can circle things and then type in what you want it to be, and it will get rid of that thing and replace it with something that it generated. I actually really enjoy that feature, and Magic Editor now is on like every phone that you want to use it on, so that's an interesting strategy as well. Pixel Studio gave us the ability to just whole cloth generate images actually on device, so not having to be sent off to a data center like what you saw with Magic Editor. They introduced a feature called Add Me, where you would take a picture and then you would like trade out with somebody, and you would go get in the picture and then take it again, and then it uses AI to stitch everybody together in a really natural way. That's an interesting, cool feature. And then of course Gemini was a huge focus. Gemini. If you were playing a drinking game, taking a shot every time you heard the word Gemini, you were deceased by the time that event was maybe halfway over. And look, I live streamed that event, and the chat was not kind. They were not kind to Google's event for the Pixel 9. And yet, if we scroll back up here, and yet 105% growth for their phones. That is very substantial. And it kind of reminds me a bit of the Galaxy S25 devices, in particular the 25 Ultra. Everybody said, look, this is the same phone as last year with a worse version of the S Pen and a bunch of AI features. This thing's going to absolutely bomb. And then at least at that initial window when the devices came out, sales were very, very strong. And minimum, the S25 phones have not bombed. They have sold quite well. And you can see that on this graph as well. Did Samsung drop? No, they grew by 7% in premium phones. We're talking about the expensive phones. So Samsung's leaning heavily into AI. You guys know that my current favorite phone of the moment is the Z Fold 7, and it got criticized a lot as well for not having hardware that was as good as something like the Magic V5. And yet we know it's selling well. And part of that's, wrapped up in this as well. I guess it would be. When did the Z Fold 7 come out? No, that was July. So the Z Fold isn't even actually included in these numbers at all. It would have been a month after these numbers. So this is really just the S25 series of ones. But we do know that the Z Fold 7 is selling quite well. I've talked about that on a number of occasions already. I just find this to be really interesting how, like I said, the vocal minority, it is a vocal minority. That is what it is. They're very loud and they're going to tell you how they feel about AI, but they aren't speaking for the market. The market is whistling a different tune. And now, of course, the Pixel 10 series of devices have been released, and Google has doubled down. Once again, there are hardly any changes. It's a new processor. It is some slightly brighter screens, some slightly bigger batteries, but primarily it's things like Magic Cues, a proactive AI assistant that surfaces relevant information when you need it. AI enhanced zoom. So when you zoom in, it's going to look at what you zoomed in on. And let me actually show you some samples here. I don't think Michael will mind me sharing these images that they posted on Threads. I think that they've recently revived a YouTube channel as well. So go check that out. I think that they've been posting a bit more frequently on here, talking about the Pixels quite a bit. So yeah, here's an image of, I think that this looks like a mourning dove to me. And this image is not great, right? There's not a lot of detail here at all, but then the AI kicks in and it generates detail. And this is such a great example because some of you are going to go, it's generating detail. This is, here's the keyword, AI slop. That's the word everybody uses. This is terrible. This isn't a photo anymore. And by the way, I think there's a really interesting conversation to be had there about what is a photo. Why would that not be a photo? What is the... But that conversation probably can't be had in a calm fashion on the internet. Look at what it did. That is absolute insanity. And again, the way it's doing this is it is generating that detail that is missing. The camera just could not capture that detail, so it said, I've got you. I'll just make that detail for you. There's an AI-powered journal app for documenting your life, but there's AI summaries and all these other AI features built into that. There's music generation, apparently, inside the Recorder app. I just heard about that the other day. They are focusing heavily on AI stuff for the Pixel 10. It worked on the 8, it worked on the 9, maybe even better. Will it work also on the Pixel 10? Only time will tell, but at least, from what we can see so far, building a phone that has AI features built in a reasonable way that is useful to people, and it's something that's like the core of the device, and they can actually show the market, customers, things about these AI features that they're going to go, wow, that is useful to me. That seems to be a winning strategy. And look, guys, here's the thing. You may look at this turning into this, and you may have your ethical, philosophical concerns with that kind of photography. But if I showed this to my mom and said, look what this thing can do, she's not going to care that occasionally it's going to get some details slightly wrong. She's probably not going to notice. She's just going to say, oh my goodness, that is incredible. What kind of phone are you using? And that's what Google is banking on. They're not really concerned with the angry vocal minority. It just is what it is, guys. I'm sure lots of thoughts will be had in the comments down below. Anytime I talk about AI stuff like this, some people get really angry. So let's not do that. Let's stay calm and have some good conversations down there. What do you think about this? Google's 105% year-over-year growth with the Pixel 9. Give me those thoughts. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.